Okay, let's dive in. Today we're turning our attention to, well, one of the most influential texts ever written, the Tao Te King.
Attributed to Lao Tzu, yeah. It's a big one.
It really is. And we're looking at it specifically through the James Led translation.
Right. And our mission here, it isn't just to, summarize an old book.
No, definitely not.
It's more about digging into the core ideas, trying to grasp the wisdom of, well, the Tao itself. What is this thing?
And how do these ideas, which often seem really counterintuitive, maybe offer us a different way to look at the world and live in it?
Exactly. A different way of seeing, a different way of acting.
So think of this less like a lecture, maybe more of an exploration.
An adventure, yeah.
Yeah.
Into some ancient thinking that can genuinely challenge us.
We're looking for those surprising bits, the paradoxes that make you stop and think about things like strength, success, even just living well.
Definitely.
So right from the start, chapter 1 just hits you with this mystery. It says something like, the Tao that can be named is not the enduring Tao.
The name that can be named is not the enduring name.
Yeah. What is that about? It feels like it's saying we can't even talk about the main topic.
Well, it's sort of setting the stage, isn't it? It's pointing to something that's beyond our normal words, our concepts.
Okay.
This Tao, this ultimate reality. You can't really pin it down with language. Any name you give it, it's already limiting it, making it less than the full thing.
The enduring Tao.
Right. It's the source, the originator of heaven and earth. But then it's also called the mother of all things.
A mother. But also nameless, formless, unchanging. That seems like a contradiction right there.
It is. That's the paradox it throws at you immediately. It's deep. You can't fathom it easily. Like an ancient ancestor, the text says.
Right, chapter 4.
You try to grasp it, but it's subtle. You can't hear it. You can't hold it.
Yep.
Chapter 14 calls it the form of the formless, the semblance of the invisible.
Wow. So it's not like a god sitting on a cloud or anything like that.
No, not in that Western sense. It's more like the fundamental principle, the underlying pattern or process of existence itself.
The way things just are.
Exactly. The source from which everything arises, everything differentiates. And how it interacts with the world, that's fascinating too.
How so?
Well, it produces everything, it nourishes everything, but, and this is key, it doesn't claim ownership. It doesn't boast, doesn't try to control.
It just lets things be.
Pretty much, it's everywhere, on the left hand and on the right, as chapter 34 puts it. Pervasive, but not interfering.
Like the universe is just unfolding naturally, effortlessly through this principle without needing a pat on the back.
You got it. And chapter 1 gives us a hint about how we might even begin to perceive it.
Ah, the desire part.
Yeah. With desire, you only see the edges, the outer fringe. But without desire, you can sound its deep mystery.
So our wanting things, grasping at them, it actually blocks us from seeing the deeper reality.
That's the idea. It focuses us on the surface, the separate things, not the underlying way. And chapter 35 has another one of those paradoxes.
Which one's that?
It says, the Tao, when you try to talk about it, seems insipid, like it has no flavor. But its use is inexhaustible.
Huh. So the deepest truths aren't necessarily flashy or exciting to talk about.
Seems that way. But their practical value, how you can use that understanding in life, that's endless.
That's a powerful thought. The most useful things aren't always the ones making the most noise.
Right. And this kind of leads into how the Tao works in the world, which often involves this dynamic play of opposites.
Yes, like beauty and ugliness.
Yeah.
Skill and lack of skill.
Exactly. Chapter 2 really lays this out. These aren't separate things fighting. They actually create each other. Beauty only makes sense because we know what ugliness is.
Skill implies the possibility of, well, not being skilled.
Right. Existence and non-existence, difficult and easy, high and low, before and behind, they're all interconnected. They give birth to each other.
So they're two sides of the same coin, constantly interacting.
Precisely. And a really non-obvious application of this is how much value the text puts on emptiness.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Chapter 11, right, the vessel.
The classic example. The usefulness of a cup isn't the clay, it's the empty space inside that holds the liquid.
Or the wheel. The empty space for the axle is what makes it work. Or a room, the space within the walls.
Exactly. The physical part, what has positive existence, is for adaptation, it says. But what does not have existence, the emptiness, that's where the usefulness lies.
And the Tao itself is compared to that emptiness, isn't it? Like the emptiness of a vessel in chapter 4.
Yes. It's the potential, the space where things can happen, where things can be.
This is really flipping things on their head. Emptiness is useful.
And it connects to stillness and movement, too.
How so?
Chapter 15 has that great image. Let muddy water stand still and it becomes clear.
Right, don't stir it up more.
And if you let movement just happen, eventually rest will naturally arise from it. Stillness is seen as the source of clarity, the correct law.
Stillness is the ruler of movement, chapter 26 says.
Exactly. So sometimes the way forward isn't more frantic activity, but a pause, letting things settle.
That makes sense. Which brings us to another really counterintuitive idea,
Yeah.
the power of softness and weakness.
Oh, this is huge. And it really goes against a lot of modern ideas about strength.
How does it put it? The soft overcomes the hard.
Yeah.
The weak overcomes the strong.
Yes, chapters 36, 43, 78, they all touch on this. Chapter 78 uses water as the prime example. Nothing seems softer, right?
Right.
But over time, it can wear down the hardest stone. Think of the Grand Canyon.
Carved by the Colorado River.
Yeah. And chapter 76 makes this really stark comparison. At birth, we're supple and weak. At death, we're rigid and strong.
Whoa.
So softness and weakness are linked to life, to growth. Rigidity and hardness are linked to death.
That completely reframes strength and weakness. Strength as rigidity, as being close to death.
Yeah.
Weakness as flexibility, as life.
It suggests that being adaptable, resilient, able to yield, that's actually more enduring in the long run than just brute force or being rigid.
Which fits with observing the flow of things, right? The constant change.
Absolutely. Chapter 29 talks about how things are always shifting. What was strong becomes weak. What was warm becomes cold.
And things that get really strong, really fixed, tend to grow old and decline. That's seen as contrary to the Tao.
Trying too hard to hold on to strength or control, it actually goes against the natural way, and ultimately it won't last.
It's a path to decline, paradoxically. This sounds a bit like the difference the text draws between heaven's way and man's way.
Yes, that's a key distinction. Heaven's way, the Taoist way, it naturally balances things out. It diminishes superabundance and supplements deficiency, like water finding its own level.
Okay, a natural redistribution.
But man's way, chapter 77 says, tends to do the opposite. It takes from those who don't have enough to add to those who already have too much.
Oof, that feels
Yeah.
incredibly relevant.
Doesn't it? It's accumulation versus natural balance. But the text also gives this wider view, like in chapter 73, the net of heaven is large.
But lets nothing escape.
Right. Suggesting there's still an underlying order, a cosmic justice maybe, even if human actions seem to mess things up or we can't always see it working.
Okay, so if that's the way, the Tao,
Mm-hmm.
how does someone actually live like that? How does the sage operate? The big concept seems to be wu-wei, non-action.
Yes. Wu Wei. And it's probably the most easily misunderstood idea. It doesn't literally mean sit on your hands and do nothing.
Right, that wouldn't get much done.
The text describes it as managing affairs without doing anything, meaning without forcing things, without ulterior motives, conveying instructions without speech.
How does that work?
Well, chapter 48 talks about the person pursuing the Tao, seeking to diminish his doing day by day, less effort, less interference, until they reach a point of doing nothing on purpose.
Ah, on purpose. So it's about intention, not forcing your will onto things.
Exactly. And the paradox is, once you reach that state of effortless action, the text says, there is nothing which he does not do.
Because you're acting in harmony with the flow, not against it.
Yeah. Precisely. Like water flowing downhill. It achieves amazing things, carving canyons, generating power, but it's not trying to. It's just following its nature.
So wu-wei is spontaneous action, arising naturally without struggle.
Yeah. Acting without overthinking the acting, conducting affairs without making them into a big troublesome thing, accomplishing ends without being fixated on the purpose.
And this seems tied very closely to humility, doesn't it? And selflessness.
Deeply connected. The sage puts his own person last and yet is found in the foremost place.
How does that work?
By not seeking the spotlight, not needing to be important, they paradoxically become trusted, maybe even followed. They're free from needing to show off, assert themselves, boast, or feel superior.
Because they don't strive against people.
No one feels the need to strive with them or against them. They don't create that conflict.
They seek to be low, like water finding the lowest point.
Exactly. Chapter 66 says they seek to be below others, so people don't feel their weight. Or behind them, so people don't feel injured or pushed. They even call themselves humble names, like orphan or man of small virtue.
That kind of humility must come from a different source of satisfaction, right?
Right.
Not external achievements.
Absolutely. It stems from simplicity and contentment. The focus shifts. Chapter 12 talks about satisfying the belly, the basic needs, rather than the longing of the eyes, always wanting more, wanting external things.
Getting off the treadmill of desire.
Right, the sage desires what others might not, maybe just peace or simplicity, doesn't prize things just because they're hard to get.
Find satisfaction in just what is.
Yeah.
Contentment with their lot.
Yes, chapters 33-46 emphasize that, avoiding excess, extravagance, indulgence, just simple sufficiency.
And this connects to how they understand knowledge too, doesn't it? It's not about accumulating facts.
Definitely not.
Yeah?
Chapter 33 says knowing others is discernment, okay, but knowing yourself is intelligence. True intelligence is understanding the unchanging principles, the Tao.
And there's that intriguing bit about speaking.
Oh yeah, chapter 56. Those who know the Tao do not care to speak about it. Those who are always talking and arguing about it do not know it.
Which ties into chapter 71, maybe my favorite line. To know and yet think we do not know is the highest attainment.
Not to know and yet think we do know is a disease.
It values intellectual humility, recognizing your limits, as the peak of wisdom.
It completely flips the script on being knowledgeable. And chapter 47 adds that you can understand the world without going out your door, see the Tao without looking out the window.
The farther that one goes out from himself, the less he knows.
Right. The deepest knowledge isn't from gathering external data, but from inner alignment, from understanding the way within yourself.
Wow, that's pretty radical, especially today. How does all this apply to, say, leading people, governing?
Well, the sage's approach to governing is just as counterintuitive. Chapter 3 talks about emptying minds, filling bellies, weakening wills, strengthening bones.
That sounds potentially bad, like oppression.
It sounds harsh to our ears, but the interpretation is usually not about literal oppression. It's more about reducing the mental clutter, the endless desires, the complex ambitions that lead to strife.
So filling bellies, meeting basic needs. Strengthening bones, fostering a solid, simple inner core. Weakening wills, lessening the striving for power or possessions.
Exactly. Keeping people, in a sense, without knowledge and desire, meaning without the kind of cleverness and ambition that disrupts harmony. The goal isn't ignorance, but simplicity.
Creating conditions where people can be naturally content, not stirring them up.
That's the idea. Chapter 57 says the sage does nothing of purpose, and the people transform themselves. He remains still, and they become correct. Takes no trouble, they become rich, in spirit perhaps. Shows no ambition, they return to simplicity.
It's incredibly hands-off, trusting the natural order.
It is. It's famously compared to cooking small fish. Don't poke at it too much or it falls apart. Handle gently, minimally.
And avoiding force is a huge theme too, not just in war.
Right, avoiding force of arms, but also avoiding overly complex or prohibitive laws or harsh punishments. Leadership through embodying the way, not through control.
Okay, this brings us right into the heart of the Tao Teh King, the paradoxes. The whole text seems built on them.
It really does. It seems intentional, designed to shake up our usual ways of thinking. Chapter 41 is just packed with them.
Yeah, like the Tao, when brightest, seems to lack light, or progress seems like drawing back.
The even way is like a rugged track. Highest virtue like a valley, greatest beauty offends the eyes.
And the firmest virtue seems poor or low. Solid truth seems to change. It's dizzying.
It is. But they're not just clever riddles. They're pointing to a deeper reality where our normal categories break down. Chapter 78 even says, words that are strictly true seem to be paradoxical.
So if it sounds straightforward and obvious, maybe it's not the deepest truth.
That could be one implication, yeah. Think about chapter 22. The partial becomes complete. The crooked, straight, the empty, full. The worn out, new.
There's transformation in apparent lack or imperfection.
Or chapter 42. Some things are increased by being diminished, others diminished by being increased. It constantly asks you to look beyond the surface.
Even things we normally value, like getting favor or achieving honor.
Chapter 13 says we should regard them with the same kind of detachment as we regard disgrace or calamity. They're just temporary states, flitting conditions.
And trying too hard to get the good stuff can backfire.
Seems so. Chapter 58 suggests the government that looks most unwise might actually foster goodness, while too much meddling just causes problems.
Misery and happiness are linked, one hiding beneath the other.
Pursuing fame or wealth can mean losing something more valuable. And chapter 81, that classic, sincere words are not fine. Fine words are not sincere.
Authenticity isn't always polished or pretty.
Not at all.
So how does the sage use these paradoxical insights when dealing with other people, with society?
Well, chapter 49 says the sage has no invariable mind of his own. He makes the mind of the people his mind.
What does that mean, just going along with the crowd?
I don't think so. It's more like radical empathy, responsiveness, meeting people where they are, understanding their perspective without being rigid in your own views.
And being good even to those who aren't good. Sincere to the insincere.
Exactly. That same chapter says he's good to the good and the not good, sincere to the sincere and the not sincere. It's unconditional. His response isn't dependent on their behavior.
So the text says he seems indecisive, indifferent, deals with people like children. That sounds a bit aloof.
Maybe aloof isn't the right word.
Hmm.
Perhaps non-judgmental, not getting caught up in their dramas or expectations, seeing the bigger picture, maybe with a kind of parental patience.
And like the Tao itself, he doesn't hoard.
Right, chapter 81 again. He does not accumulate for himself. The more he gives away or uses for others, the more he actually has. It's abundance through outflow, not holding on.
A completely different model of wealth or success.
Totally. And there's a practicality, too. Chapter 63 says he sees difficulty even in what seems easy, so he never has any difficulties.
Because he anticipates problems. He's mindful.
Yeah, he deals with things when they're small, before they become big crises. It's preventative wisdom. Ultimately, he's just helping things develop naturally, not trying to force his own agenda onto them.
Okay, so we've got this picture of the Tao this way, and the sage living in harmony with it. Why is it presented as being so hard then? If it's the natural way, why don't we just do it?
Well, the text points the finger right back at us, at common human tendencies. Desire, right from chapter 1, is the first hurdle.
Our constant wanting.
Then there's valuing external things. Chapter 3 is clear. Prizing rare objects leads to theft. Showing off desirable things leads to envy and disorder. Valuing ability leads to rivalry.
So our focus on the shiny objects, the status symbols, the achievements, that's what messes things up.
That's a big part of it. And also maybe too much cleverness, excessive knowledge, intricate thinking. Chapter 65 suggests this actually makes governing harder, leads people astray.
Striving, wanting to be important, wanting to control things.
All described as contrary to the gentle, effortless way. They create friction.
And the text famously says that when the great Tao, this natural harmony, was lost, that's when things like benevolence and righteousness appeared.
Right, chapter 18, followed by wisdom, shrewdness, hypocrisy. And chapter 38 takes it further. When the higher virtues were lost, then the lower ones, like benevolence, appeared.
So it's not saying kindness is bad.
No, but their necessity signals that something deeper is already out of whack. They're like, corrective measures because we're not naturally aligned anymore. Band-aids on a deeper wound.
That's a really challenging way to think about morality. It's just we often choose the complicated paths, the byways, instead of the simple level Tao.
Yeah, chapter 53 talks about preferring the fancy detours, getting distracted, losing that precious gentleness, as chapter 69 puts it, by rushing into conflict or complexity.
So the difficulty isn't in the Tao itself.
It's in us, in our conditioning to strive, to control, to value the external, to complicate things.
Okay, so wrapping this up then. This deep dive into the Tao Teh King, through Legg's translation anyway, it really seems to be about finding harmony with, well, the fundamental way things are, the effortless flow of nature, the universe.
It's a call to recognize that flow and work with it, not constantly fight against it. And the key practices seem to be things like wu-wei effortless action.
Right, and humility, stillness, yielding, simplicity, contentment.
All those things that seem weak or passive by some standards, but are presented here as sources of real strength and resilience.
And the text keeps saying the Tao's usefulness is inexhaustible. It's the most valuable thing. It's always available, even if we make it hard for ourselves to access it.
It really does offer a profoundly different way to approach, well, everything.
So let's leave you, the listener, with a final thought, really digging into those paradoxes we talked about. The Tao Te King suggests true strength might actually lie in yielding, that maybe doing less or doing nothing on purpose accomplishes more, and that the best leader is one people barely know is there.
Big ideas to wrestle with?
Definitely. So think about it. What areas in your own life, maybe your work, your relationships, just your own mind, might actually benefit from letting go of some of that striving? What if you embraced a bit more emptiness or stillness or yielding? What would it really mean for you to find contentment right here, right now?